The loudest person in the room is often the weakest. Noise cannot conceal insecurity, it only exposes a lack of control. True strength never needs to shout, because the essence of power is steady, unmoved, and free from the need to prove itself. Stillness is the purest form of strength, an energy that doesn't seek attention, yet compels everyone around to feel it. In a world where people rush to speak, rush to react, rush to prove themselves, the one who knows how to remain still holds the greatest advantage. Stillness is not passivity, nor is it cowardice. It is not sitting idle while life happens. On the contrary, stillness is the state of absolute control. It is the ability to hold yourself steady even when the world around you trembles. It is the art of mastering your inner storm so no external chaos can throw you off course. When others allow emotions to dictate their actions, they become slaves to their anger, fear, or pride. But the still person refuses to be pulled into that whirlpool. They observe, they feel, but they choose to remain outside. And that choice is the highest expression of power. Imagine a room where everyone is shouting, each trying to prove they are right. The air is thick with tension, words like arrows, eyes like flames. In that space, there is one person who does not argue, does not react, but simply listens with calm in their gaze. That presence is stronger than any voice. It compels even the loudest to adjust themselves. Stillness creates space, and in that space, true strength is revealed. It is like a lake reflecting the sky. When the water is calm, it mirrors everything with clarity. But when it is disturbed, the reflection is distorted. The human mind is no different. When ruled by emotion, perception is twisted. When anchored in stillness, truth is seen as it is. And that is the foundation of wisdom. Many mistake stillness for weakness, believing silence means defeat. But the truth is, impulsive reaction is the real failure. It reveals you have lost control of yourself. The still person doesn't need to win every argument because they know most battles are traps designed to drag them out of peace. Stillness is the refusal to waste energy on meaningless fights, preserving it for what truly matters. Life constantly lures us into the noise. Society glorifies those who talk the most, react the fastest, prove themselves the quickest. But there is something far more enduring, the presence of stillness. It does not seek attention, yet it commands it. It does not need defense, because calmness itself is the strongest shield. The still person knows that power is not in speaking at every turn, but in choosing the right moment to act, the right words to say. A single sentence spoken from stillness carries more weight than 1,000 spoken in chaos. An action born from stillness holds more force than one sparked by anger. The power of stillness is invisible, quiet, unpretentious, yet unshakable. It may not be obvious at first, but it is always felt. And in a world drowning in noise, the one who possesses stillness holds the greatest advantage: mastery over self, mastery over circumstances, and ultimately, mastery over life. People often mistake themselves for their emotions. We say, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, as if our entire being has collapsed into a passing feeling. But the truth is, emotions are not who you are. They are only clouds drifting across the vast sky, while you are the sky itself, unchanging, unshaken, untouched by what passes through. Picture a clear blue sky, a dark cloud drifts in, the storm breaks, and rain pours down. You might believe the sky itself has turned gloomy, yet when the storm ends and the clouds disperse, the sky remains pure, bright, and unharmed. Emotions in life are the same. They arrive heavy and intense, but they leave. What remains unchanged is you, the boundless, unmoving sky. The problem is, we grow up in a world that teaches us emotions define us. When you get angry, someone says he's hot-tempered. When you're sad, they call you weak. Society labels people by fleeting moments, and gradually you believe it too. You begin to think you are anger, you are sadness, you are disappointment. But believing that only robs you of freedom, because once you think you are an emotion, you're forced to live by its rules. Anger rises in your chest. You feel your heartbeat quicken, your breath shorten, your fists tighten. If you identify with it, you explode, saying words you cannot take back. But if in that moment you remember, I am the sky, this is only a cloud, you choose differently. You watch the sensation rise, you see it pass, and you remain untouched. That distance is true strength. The inner witness appears only when you stop labeling yourself with emotions. When you realize you are the sky, you can see the cloud without becoming it. You can feel sadness without being consumed. You can hear irritation in your mind without acting upon it. This is the freedom most people forget, the freedom to choose your response. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals, messengers from within. But problems arise when we let them take the throne. When you believe I am anger, anger rules you. When you believe I am hurt, hurt decides how you live. Emotions must be acknowledged, but they should never be handed the keys of control. You'll notice that the clearest moments of your life don't come when emotions lead, but when you pause, breathe, and let them pass. Wisdom rarely arises in the heat of rage, but in the stillness after. Steady decisions are not born in panic, but in calm observation. When you remember you are the sky, you create the space to act from wisdom instead of react from instinct. This world will never stop sending you dark clouds. There will always be moments that irritate you, words that wound you, circumstances that confuse you. You cannot control when clouds come or how dense they are, but you can remember they do not define you. They only pass through, and you, like the sky, remain vast, steady, and clear. Once this truth truly sinks in, you feel lighter. You no longer fear anger, panic at sadness, or despair at disappointment. You see them as clouds, coming and going, nothing more. And in doing so, you grow stronger, wiser, and more at peace. Emotions are guests. You are the master of the house. Do not let guests overstay. Do not hand them the keys. Welcome them. Thank them for the message they bring, and then show them the door. For the sky is always intact, no matter how thick the clouds, and you in your deepest essence can never be hidden by what merely passes through. In moments of insult, disrespect, or provocation, instinct pulls you toward reaction. Your heart races, breath quickens, fists tighten. The mind fills with the urge to strike back immediately. Without awareness, you plunge into the spiral, like someone controlled by unseen strings reacting unconsciously, leaving scars on yourself. Yet even in the chaos, another part of you is always present. A part that doesn't shout, doesn't tremble, doesn't rage, a part that simply observes. This is the inner observer, the deepest layer of consciousness. Most people forget the observer is not an abstract idea. You can sense it the very moment anger rises. It is when you suddenly notice, I am angry, instead of just being anger. It is the inner voice that says, I am losing control, while a higher awareness simultaneously witnesses that loss of control. That second layer of consciousness is your truest self. It sees the storm without becoming the storm. It hears the shouting in your mind but does not join in. It stands apart, calm, steady, watching it all unfold. Shaolin monks call this the key to mastery. They don't spend their lives training only for combat. Every movement, every strike, every breath is a tool to discipline the mind. For the greatest enemy is not the one before you, but the storm within. That enemy appears the moment you forget you have a choice. The observer restores that power, the power not to react, the power to release, the power to act from clarity instead of impulse. When you allow the observer to emerge, you see anger rise like a wave. You don't fight to suppress it, nor do you deny it. You simply watch the way you'd watch water flow. And like every wave, it eventually dissolves. You remain peaceful, unshaken. In that moment, you discover a new strength, the strength of self-mastery. The observer also shields you from being tossed around by external forces. When someone insults you, if you identify with emotion, you instantly feel wounded. But when you stand as the observer, you see only sounds, words, vibrations passing by. They cannot hurt you unless you grant them power. The stillness of the observer is not surrender, it is wisdom. It knows that immediate reaction only fuels the inner fire, and the one who suffers most will always be you. Many confuse observing with suppressing, Suppression means pushing emotions down, letting them build until they explode even more violently later. Observation is different. Observation allows emotions to exist, but never hands them control. It is looking anger in the eye, acknowledging it, but not letting it turn into words or actions. It is a state that is compassionate, yet clear, steady, yet awake. When you live from the observer's seat, you are no longer a puppet of emotion. You begin to choose your responses. You can hear criticism without being shaken, face provocation without losing your calm, witness injustice, yet act with wisdom instead of blindness. The observer doesn't make you passive. On the contrary, it gives you the strength to act at the right time, in the right way, from clarity instead of defense. Each day offers countless chances to invite the observer forward. A contemptuous look, a disrespectful word, an unfair moment, all can be tests. If you let emotion rule, you lose freedom. But if you let the observer rise, you remain free even in chaos. And that freedom becomes the foundation of peace, wisdom, and strength. The inner observer is the key that unlocks you from the chains of unconscious reaction. It reminds you that you always have a choice. You are not anger, not fear, not hurt. You are the one who sees them all. And when you truly live from that place, nothing can shake the ground of your inner strength. Human suffering rarely comes from external events. It almost always arises from the way we cling to them. When someone ignores you, the pain does not come from being overlooked. It comes from the belief you hold that I must be acknowledged. When someone succeeds, envy doesn't stem from their achievement, but from your attachment to comparison. Their success means my failure. Reality itself does not wound you. What bleeds your heart are the attachments to beliefs, expectations, and the stories you tell yourself. Attachment is like invisible strings tying your mind to the outside world. When the world shifts, those strings tremble and your heart trembles with them. If you are attached to recognition, every word of praise or criticism makes your mood swing. If you are attached to comfort, even the smallest inconvenience feels unbearable. If you are attached to people, every change or departure feels like losing a piece of yourself. The more attachments you have, the more easily you are pulled away from peace. The danger is that most attachments happen unconsciously. You believe they are natural, you must be loved, must be respected, must be treated fairly, but life does not bend to your expectations. People will change, circumstances will shift, and when that happens, every attachment becomes a chain that binds you to suffering. Ask yourself, do you truly suffer because of someone's actions or because your expectation was broken? When someone doesn't reply to your message, do you suffer from their silence or from believing you must always be answered? When someone disagrees with you, are you upset because of their view or because you're attached to being right? When someone leaves, is it their absence that breaks you or you're clinging to the belief they would stay forever? All of this points to one truth. External events cannot determine your inner state unless you give them power through attachment. Suffering doesn't come from reality. It comes from the gap between reality and your expectations. Shaolin monks understand this well. That is why they practice releasing attachments not out of indifference, but out of a desire for freedom. They know that if the mind is chained to praise and blame, love and hate, winning and losing, true freedom can never exist. Letting go does not mean being careless or cold. It means living with an open heart, refusing to let outside strings dictate your inner peace. Look within yourself. Every time anger, hurt, or anxiety arises, pause and ask, what in me feels threatened? What belief am I clinging to? What expectation of others or of life am I holding on to? You will be surprised to find that the pain is never in the event. It is always in your attachment to it. And as you untie each string, remove each chain, you feel a lightness you've never known. Imagine life without the grip of attachment. When you are not attached to recognition, you are free to live authentically, unbound by the gaze of others. When you are not attached to being right, you can welcome opposing views without feeling threatened. When you are not attached to people, you love them with generosity without possession, without chains, because you know true love is never bondage. Suffering is not destiny, it is the consequence of attachment. And when you see this root clearly, you hold the key to freedom. Freedom does not come from controlling the outside world, it comes from loosening the bonds within. Without attachment, you can still love, but you won't suffer from loss. You can still strive, but you won't collapse from failure. You can still enjoy life, but you won't depend on it. The truth is, the world will never stop changing, but the sky within you can remain unmoved. When you no longer cling to passing clouds, you discover an eternal peace inside yourself. And that is true freedom. Freedom that no person, no circumstance, no change can ever take away. Most suffering is born from the gap between reality and expectation. People do not suffer because of the rain, they suffer because they expected sunshine. They do not get angry at traffic itself, but at the desire that the road should always be clear. They do not despair at silence, but at the craving to be noticed. The problem does not lie in what happens, but in our insistence that it must be different. When you believe the world must bend to your will, you enter into a battle that has no end. Letting go of demands and expectations does not mean abandoning dreams or giving up aspirations. It means learning to see life as it is, without constantly imposing, it must be this way or it must not be that way. You no longer force the world to follow a script you've written because you understand that every imposed script leads to disappointment. When you accept reality, you step out of the cycle of comparison, regret, and anger and into harmony. Notice yourself in moments of frustration. When plans change, you lose your calm because reality no longer matches your expectation. When others act differently than you want, you feel hurt because your joy depends on them pleasing you. But if you release those demands, everything becomes simpler. You accept change, adjust, and remain at peace. You see others making their own choices, respect them, and no longer lose your joy simply because they didn't meet your expectations. This letting go does not make you weaker, it makes you stronger. Because once you are no longer chained by everything must be as I want, you can adapt to any shift in life. You no longer depend on sun or rain to feel happy, on recognition to feel valuable, or on anyone's presence to feel whole. Your peace no longer comes from outside, it becomes a self-sustaining source from within. True strength is not in controlling every situation, but in not needing any situation to control your mind. When it rains, you enjoy the freshness. When the sun shines, you welcome the light. When someone leaves, you treasure what was shared without collapsing in loss. When one door closes, you calmly search for another without resentment. Many fear that letting go of expectations means becoming passive, losing drive. But in truth, letting go does not kill aspiration, it liberates it. You can still set goals and work diligently, but now with clarity, knowing the outcome may or may not arrive. And when it doesn't, you don't collapse because you no longer cling to one fixed script. This is not giving up, it is freedom. Letting go also transforms love. Instead of loving someone with the demand, they must always stay, you love them as they are, with freedom to come and go. Love no longer becomes a chain, but a gift. When they stay, you are grateful. When they leave, you remain steady. Because true love is not possession, it is giving without clinging. Ultimately, letting go of demands and expectations brings you back to truth. The world owes you nothing. It is not programmed to revolve around you. It will continue to shift, surprise, and often defy your hopes. But when you stop demanding, you stop being disappointed. When you stop clutching, you finally hold peace. Letting go does not take anything away from you, it gives everything back. Lightness, serenity, freedom. You stop fighting life, stop resisting the unchangeable, and begin to walk in harmony. That is true strength, not the power to bend the world, but the resilience to remain flexible, steady, and at peace through every storm. Your energy is finite. Each day, you are given only a certain amount of life force to work, to love, to grow. Yet most of us don't burn out because we work too much, but because we let our energy leak into things that don't matter. We react to every little word, get tangled in endless comparisons, worry about every passing glance until our energy is scattered into hundreds of fragments. And when energy is scattered, power disappears. Focus is the vessel, the channel that decides where your energy will flow. When you focus on anger, you become anger. When you focus on lack, you live in lack. When you focus on fear, you build your life on trembling ground. But if you choose to focus on peace, gratitude, and purpose, you create a life that is strong, radiant, and full of vitality. The question is not whether you have energy, it is where you are pouring it. The world is noisy and always competing for your attention. Phones buzz, social media devours hours, gossip unsettles your mind. If you don't choose consciously where to place your focus, you'll be dragged toward what is unworthy. And when your energy is wasted on what doesn't matter, you lose the ability to build what truly does. Shaolin monks understand that discipline is not only of the body, it is at its core of the mind. Every movement, every breath, every hour of meditation is training to sharpen focus, like a blade that dulls if not polished daily. The mind grows weak if not disciplined daily. Focus is forged not in times of ease, but in moments of distraction, fatigue, and discomfort. When you can anchor your mind to the breath, even as it tries to wander, you are building invisible inner strength. Look at daily life. People often believe they are exhausted because of too many responsibilities. In truth, the greatest fatigue comes from letting the mind be stretched in a dozen directions at once. You work while replaying someone's words from yesterday, while comparing yourself online, while worrying about a future that may never arrive. Each thought is like a hole in a water bucket. Your energy seeps out until nothing is left at the end of the day. Learning to focus is learning to seal those holes. You no longer hand your attention to provocations. You no longer drain energy in meaningless rivalries. You save your strength for what truly nourishes you: meaningful work, genuine relationships, the path of growth. And the miracle appears. You feel less tired, yet more powerful, because your energy is no longer fragmented, but gathered, concentrated, clear. Focus is the measure of the value you give yourself. Wherever you place attention, you are offering your life. If you give it to anger, you grow anger. If you give it to comparison, you cultivate insecurity. But if you give it to peace and wisdom, you plant the seeds of a steady life. Energy does not know right or wrong, it only follows focus. And when you focus rightly, your life begins to transform. Remember, your greatest enemy is not adversity, but distraction. The unfocused person lives like a puppet, pulled by the noise outside. The one who masters focus walks through chaos, yet remains unshaken, never losing direction. True power is not in doing many things, but in knowing what is worth doing. Focus is the gateway that gathers your energy into one point. And when energy converges, you become fire, you become force. With focus, you enter a state unshakable by circumstance. This is inner power, the strength no one can give you, forged only through your awareness and discipline. People often mistake stillness for passivity, avoidance, or weakness. In truth, stillness is the very root from which right action is born. A restless mind can never make wise decisions. A heart clouded by anger cannot choose the path of wisdom. Only in stillness do you find the space to see clearly, the pause to discern truth from illusion, and the strength to act from wisdom rather than instinct. The one who reacts instantly may appear strong, but is only a puppet pulled by emotion. The one who remains still is truly free, because they refuse to let others or circumstances dictate their actions. This strength is not easy. It demands inner discipline, like forging a blade. The more it is sharpened, the keener it becomes. The more stillness is cultivated, the more precise and powerful every action. Imagine a heated argument. Everyone is angry, fighting to be right. Words fly like arrows, no one yields. In that storm, one person stays silent, listening, not reacting. They do not speak to win, but to understand. And when they finally speak, a single sentence is enough to extinguish the flames. Because true power in words comes not from quantity, but from depth. And depth only arises from stillness. Stillness is like solid ground. When storms rage, trees may sway, but roots remain firm. So it is with people. With stillness as your foundation, you are not swept away by turmoil. You still act, but with grounding. You still speak, but your words carry weight. You no longer waste energy in meaningless quarrels or in defending the ego. You choose what matters and let go of what does not. Stillness is not inaction. It is the highest state of readiness. A still person is like a drawn bow, waiting for the right moment to release. When the time comes, their action is swift, sharp, precise. The impatient squander energy in countless wasted moves, while the still can shift the course with a single act. Stillness is also the practice of self-mastery. It forces you to face yourself, to witness the undercurrents of your own mind. Sit in silence, and thoughts surge, emotions swell. At first, you want to run, but with practice, you learn to observe without being pulled in. That training becomes the foundation for walking into life unshaken by any storm. In stillness, you also learn patience. Many fail not for lack of ability, but for lack of waiting. They act too soon, decide too quickly, speak before seeing clearly. Stillness teaches you to wait for the right moment. In that waiting, truth reveals itself. You see people's true nature, the bigger picture, and when you act from clarity, not blindness. The power of stillness lies in its refusal to be lured by false urgency. The world constantly pushes you to react, to speak, to prove. Stillness lets you ask, is this worth it? Is this truly necessary? 9 out of 10 arguments, 9 out of 10 insults, 9 out of 10 temptations are not worthy of your energy. Only stillness gives you the clarity to say no. Stillness is the space between stimulus and response. Whoever controls that space controls their life. They are no longer victims of circumstance, but masters of it. And in a world of constant change, that is the highest power. When you cultivate stillness, you don't just change your reactions, you change your very presence. Others sense in you a grounded, steady energy. They see you are not easily shaken, and they respect you for it. This is not loud authority, but quiet strength. Stillness is the foundation of right action. It protects you from reckless reaction and gives you the clarity to know when to advance and when to retreat. In stillness, you find wisdom, and from wisdom, you act. That is the way of one who truly masters themselves. A master does not need to prove their strength. Their very presence is enough for others to feel it. They do not argue to win, do not speak to defend their ego, do not react to display courage, for they understand that most battles in life are nothing but traps designed to pull us out of peace. And in entering a meaningless battle, even if you win, you lose. The path of the master is not built on outward victories, but on inner mastery. Ordinary people act to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. The master is the opposite. They need no validation from outside, for certainty already lives within. Stillness becomes their weapon, not for hiding, but for preserving their power intact. When insulted, they do not react, knowing words are only passing energy. When challenged, they do not rush into confrontation, because not every fight is worth fighting. When belittled, they remain calm, because their worth is not defined by another's gaze. While others are pulled into the spiral, the master stands unmoved like a mountain still in the storm. This path is not easy, for it runs against instinct. Instinct demands reaction, revenge, proof. The master chooses differently. Silence, observation, action only when necessary and always from clarity. They know silence at the right moment is more powerful than 1,000 words. They know one precise action holds more weight than 100 reckless reactions. They know true strength is rooted in inner steadiness. Walking the path of the master means refusing what is unworthy of your energy. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every argument needs a winner. Not every opportunity should be seized. The master chooses only what aligns with their true essence and lets go of the rest. This is not loss, it is wisdom. Life is too short to waste on what does not nourish growth. The master understands that self-mastery is the greatest victory. They need not conquer others, for the fiercest enemy is the restless, prideful, insecure ego within. Once they overcome it, they become invincible. No one can control them. No circumstance can disturb them. Their peace becomes unshakable, and from that peace they act with rare clarity. To walk this path is also to live simply, yet deeply, not chasing noise, not drowning in chaos, not driven by hollow ambition. Instead, the master walks lightly, yet every step carries the weight of presence. Others may not understand at once, but they always feel it. In the presence of a master, hearts grow still, minds grow clearer, and souls feel at peace. The summit of this path is not to become untouchable, but to live in complete harmony with reality. The master neither resists life nor runs from it. They live fully within it, accept it, love it, yet never surrender their inner freedom. They walk through the storm while keeping the blue sky within. The path of the master is the journey back to oneself, a long road demanding discipline, patience, and daily awareness. But the reward is priceless. Freedom that cannot be shaken, peace that cannot be broken, wisdom that cannot be obscured. This is the strength that never needs display, never seeks recognition because it has always been within you, waiting for you to claim it.